On the day of the camping trip, it was kind of gray and heavy. I could feel my backpack cutting into my shoulder blades. I kissed my little twin brothers on the tops of their head before I left. For some stupid reason, I felt like I might never see them again. Mom would have said I was being dramatic, but I couldn't help it. The wet look of the rooftops that morning, the sharp smell of asphalt on the road, the call of a passing crow, it all felt ominous. But my brothers didn't notice a thing. They're only 3 years old, too young to be scared. They grinned. Dan waved at me. Then one of them picked up the cat by its neck and made it wave to me too. Poor Goldie. She yowled, but she was used to their rough kind of love, and I thought, at least I'm not a cat stuck with my 2 little brothers. Maybe Mom and Dad were wrong. Maybe reality was worse than our imaginations. I straightened my back and left them then, ready to take on my fate like an adult would do. But my bravado faded quickly once our bus had pulled away from the school. On the bus I didn't feel very good, so I didn't talk much to my friend Jake, but only let him laugh and make jokes with the other kids on the bus. Alone with my worries, I pressed my head to the window and felt the vehicle rattle over every pothole in the road. I could still see the heavy clouds piling one on top of the other in the corners of the sky. The camping ground was on the edge of a national park, all that nature should have been relaxing. But everything here now looked dark and foreign. When we pulled into the camping ground, Jake turned around and offered me a raisin from the packet his parents had packed in his lunchbox. No thanks, I said, trying to smile. More for me. He shrugged and hit me on the arm, smiling. Jake was small and his dark eyes twinkled. He didn't understand being scared of things, because he was always so happy. I gazed around me as we stepped off the bus, and tried to see the area with normal eyes, like Jake would. When I looked at the camping ground like that, I could almost convince myself that it was all perfectly ordinary. I could see there was a big barbecue area where everyone could eat together. Next to it was some toilet cubicles. Investigating, I saw there were tall lockers lining the walls, with some showers at the end. Coming back out again, all I could see was a line of trees rising gently over a smooth hill, and a river we could swim in. Everything was very quiet. All the birds must have been sleeping or flown elsewhere. I set up my tent next to Jake's, and started to put my sleeping things out. The day remained heavy. I felt kind of sweaty. It was as though the whole place was holding its breath for something. Even the kids in my class, usually boisterous, were murmuring and quiet as they set everything up. After we were finished, I smelled sausages and saw that the teachers had made up a lunch for us. We ate them with bread and ketchup, hot and delicious. It settled me a bit, and I started to feel a bit better. Then the teachers told us that we could spend the afternoon swimming or go in for a bushwalk. Most of the kids wanted to go swimming, so I went on the bushwalk instead. The murky brown water of the river hid all sorts of creatures I didn't want to think about. Besides, I secretly wanted to see what animals were living in this area, so I could identify them when they made sounds in the night. Masters, the music teacher, was pretty happy to be on a bushwalk. He hummed as he pointed out the different kinds of eucalyptus trees, the genus of rocks. He wore sandals I'd never seen him in before, with socks pulled up to his knees, and a broad, floppy hat. He smelled of sunscreen, like he'd rolled in a whole pool of it. For the snakes, he winked when he saw me looking at his socks, as if snakes would balk at the sight of a bit of material. There were only a few other kids with us. To boys I didn't know very well, they were pretty quiet. Jake was also there. He loved Masters. He asked so many questions, and Mr. Masters was so delighted to have such a curious student that he answered them all. "What kind of rock is that?" Jake kept saying. "Is this plant poisonous? What do you do if you get stung by a hornet?" Jake talked so much, and Mr. Masters responded so enthusiastically, that I realized with a sinking feeling after only a few moments that between the two of them they'd scared all the animals away. Apart from the rocks and plants, we didn't see a thing. In fact, the clouds came over heavier, and there was a moment that I looked at the sky and wondered if we were going to get caught in a downpour. Masters must have thought so too. He'd been looking at his mobile phone to see which paths to take, but suddenly he looked up at the sky and stopped short. He made a few taps on his phone, then he frowned. Finally he said, "My phone's not working." He tapped his screen,